I'd like to call this meeting to order for the Corporation Township of Whistler on January 13th, 2022. Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to 2022. Hopefully it brings better than the last couple. And I will start with roll call. Councillor Goyda.
Present.
Councillor Spoulos.
Present.
Councillor Bailey.
Present.
And Councillor Bomer.
Present.
All right, we'll have a moment of reflection. That concludes our moment of reflection. Ms. Whitefox, could you read the confirmation of the agenda, please?
Council approves the January 13th, 2022 agenda, and that council approves the addition to the agenda as follows. Consent agenda item 6.1.1, questions received from council seeking additional information, and the corresponding responses provided by staff regarding the January 13th, 2022 council agenda items.
All right, can I get a mover for that, please? Councillor Spoulos, seconder by Councillor Bomer. If either one of you two, if I lose video, all right, yeah,
I'm just, my connection's a little unstable, so I'm just gonna try and keep my video off if I can.
Being off, Councillor Goyda, and I'll maybe ask Mr. Neer to maybe keep a little bit closer look on it than normal today, please. Yeah, there goes my internet saying I'm unstable now too. Okay, so that was moved and seconded. All in favor? Councillor Goyda?
In favor.
Sorry, any questions? Sorry, any questions or comments on the additions and anything? Or we approve them? Consent agenda. Okay, in favor, Councillor Goyda, Councillor Spoulos?
No, I don't.
I'm in favor and I have no questions.
Okay, Councillor Bailey
In favor, no questions.
and Councillor Bomer.
No questions, in favor.
All right, any disclosure of pecuniary interest today? No. Consent agenda, there's nothing. The next one. Wednesday. So we have a public meeting. Well, is that tonight? January 19th. I got my dates mixed up. January 19th, 2022, public information meeting held by electronic participation at 7 p.m. Starting the following, that's the 2022 budget public information meeting. It's the engagement with the community. Report, so we'll just get right into it. First report is from Ms. Hassan for report to finance 2022-001, and I'll hand the floor over to her.
So this report is just an update from the last couple budget meetings in terms of the amendments that were requested for the budget development and control policy by council at the October 27th capital budget meeting. And then the COLA request as it relates to a policy for cost of living adjustment moving forward. And that was at the November 17th operating budget meeting. So there is some direction in the council resolution that's required as it relates to the budget, and I'm open to any questions from council based on the report presented.
So Mrs. Sandy and I had a discussion. What you're looking for to this report is on page 6 of the, well, it kind of borders page 5 and page 6 of the agenda package. You were looking for direction from council on whether to implement option 1 or option 2. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And just to kind of explain, option 1 was presented as it relates to some of the discussion that occurred at the operating budget meeting, and option 2 is just based on what other municipalities are moving towards in terms of approving the COLA prior to presenting the first version of the operating budget, and it allows staff to have all those inputs in place and provide council with a more wholesome picture of the proposed operating budget if the COLA is approved prior to presenting the first draft of the operating budget.
Okay, well, I'll go around the council and see if there's support there for option 2 or option 1. Councillor Goida.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm in terms of the revised policy overall, I'm happy with the revisions that have been implemented. In terms of the COLA piece, I have to admit that when I first read that the COLA incorporated in the budget was 4%, my instinct was to arbitrarily implement a lower number. And upon further reflection, and thanks to a very well-written report by our CAO, I do see that that's not the right approach. So I really appreciated the comment in the report that using the language, finding a more equitable method of calculation, it alluded to the fact that the current method was not equitable. And that really resonated with me because that's not and has not been the case. And so I think as council, when we make commitments and policies, you know, it's our
Lost the last
responsibility to fulfill those commitments and abide by those policies. So for that reason, oh, sorry, did I lose you? Are you there?
Just for a moment, but I'm pretty sure we just lost a few words, but I understand.
Piece it together. Okay. So yeah, just for that reason, and there's many other reasons that were outlined in Schedule B, I would support the option 2, which continues the 1-year CPI. But I do agree that the May to May is a good approach and have that established before the budget process even begins. Having said that though, I would support moving forward with that approach, but in terms of the current budget year, I think we first need to fulfill our existing commitment. And so to me, that means that for this year, I think it should be at the 4, and that we need to find a reduction in the levy as we go through our next report. But in terms of this policy, that's where I'm coming from on the cost of living adjustment piece.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Goida. Councillor Spoulos.
Yes, I would support option 2. I also admit, as Councillor Goida did last time around, when we saw the big increase in taxes, my first reaction was, okay, what's going on here type of thing, and cut and asked to look back. Using option 2 would allow us to plan for it in a more logical fashion and be able to respond in a more timely fashion rather than knee-jerk reaction at the last minute. But also, in terms of the wording that's provided in the document, I'm going to ask that some important metrics be also included in the final budget report, as was done in previous years. I'm not asking for anything new. And these include the total tax levy increase in percent. We have the absolute numbers. Then how much tax as a result of a 1% tax increase. That has been provided in previous times and has not been provided this time. The tax rate impact, it's not provided overtly, it's sort of slid in there in a couple of places under the request for the COLA clause and under the request for the increase associated with another item. And then a blended tax rate increase, including Wellington County. Again, it's in there, but it's not overtly in there done in previous years. So I think those are important metrics that we should be having spelled out clearly in the report. I understand where staff came from when they were preparing the report. It's based on a suggested document where we're focusing more on the median housing numbers as opposed to getting the basic metrics first and then rolling down to the median housing.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Spoulos. Ms. Hassan, do you need further clarification on that? Does that make sense to you?
No, I need detailed direction because I heard a lot of different things from Councillor Sapoulis right now. So
Can you work through each of them individually, please,
Okay.
Councillor Spoulos?
Okay, sure. Total tax levy increase in percent.
Where's your concern on that one, Ms. Hassan?
Okay, can I just share my screen actually, because I just want to
Yeah.
make sure that we address this appropriately, so. So I think what I'm hearing, Counselor, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I think what I'm hearing then, Counselor Sapoulis, is that, I'm just going to the right page. That this chart here have another column that provides the percentage increase.
Yes, and also another column that has a tax rate increase associated, a tax impact associated with that. Tax rate impact associated with that. And ahead of that, in the previous years, you had a paragraph that says a 1%, 40,000 or whatever the number is this time around, it results in a 1% tax increase.
But, so that information was provided prior to obtaining the assessment growth and the revised assessment values from MPAC.
I think that should be included here with the impact of the assessment growth.
Does that make sense, Mrs. Sands? So it's a revised number. With the impact growth, it would probably be less. So if it were before the assessment growth, 1%, maybe it equated to 42,000 this year. Is it? Am I doing the math correctly? That with the assessment growth, a 1% increase would be maybe less. Say, I'll just pull a random number, but it could be around 39,000. Is that the number you're trying to look for, Councilor Spillis?
Whatever the number is, yes.
So does that make sense for the 1% growth? Mrs. Sand, just to be inclusive of all inputs is essentially what he's asking for in the final report.
Yeah.
Okay, and then a blended tax rate that includes the Wellington County. In other words, you cite someplace, I believe, someplace where you say it's overall blended rate of 2.11 we agree with the COLA clause.
Sorry, the blended tax rate based on the
No, overall, with before we shake it down to the medium typical family home. It's 2.11, I understand.
it's 2.11 with the 4% COLA if council approves that.
Correct.
Yes, so this right here is the 1.91%, and it's with the 2% COLA that council directed staff to incorporate as part of the next draft of the operating budget.
Mary, did you have a placeholder for a county tax increase? If we're just going to use the screen you're showing right now, the 1.91, did you use a placeholder for a proposed county tax
Yes.
increase? Yes.
So I received that here, and that's why this chart here shows the blended.
With county in at 2.04, Councillor Spoulis. I was going to do it mayor's update, but the proposed county update, proposed county tax increase this year is 2%. So there'd be a 0.04 savings as long as it makes it through all the committees. It made it through roads and solid waste without any increases. The rest of them are
That's fine. So as long as we have all those numbers, I'm happy.
okay. What was the third item?
I think it's important to understand that because there's a lot of different numbers thrown around, and depending how you read them, you could be messed up.
Okay, so you had the two items there. You had the equivalent of a 1% tax increase after all inputs are made.
Yes.
We have the county, and what was the third one, Councillor? I forget.
There was a total tax increase in percent. If you go back to the previous table, right there. So there's a percentage associated with that on the percent increase, dollar percent increase, or levy percent increase, and there's also a tax rate increase associated with that as well.
So you're looking for the percentages like that, whatever 228,642, whatever that equates to in a
What is
percentage?
it an increase over the previous years, and what is it result in a percentage tax rate increase?
So
In other words, the county has a 2% tax rate increase. We have a whatever, 3 point whatever the number is.
Yeah, so
Okay.
so this here is the levy increase, and I can add a column that explains what the percentage increase is. And then this here discusses what the township tax increases versus the county versus education, and then blended.
Okay, but further up there, you'll include a number on what a 1% tax rate increase in costs.
Yes.
Okay, that's all. It's similar to what we've done in previous years. I'm not asking reinvention of the wheel or anything like that. I thought previous reports were clear. I know which way you're trying to go with this, and I think during the process, we might have skipped a couple of items.
So just for clarification, I think there was a misunderstanding, or at least I'm misunderstanding it.
Yes,
The screen you're showing, Mary, shows 228,642 as a difference from the 2021 approved budget. Councillor Sapoulis is looking for a percentage of what that equates to, 228. So
Yeah,
that
so that's-
228,642 divided by whatever the 1% tax increase is. Is that correct, Councillor Sapoulis and Mary?
Well, it's the 228,642, divide that by what was approved last year, and that's 5.19% tax levy increase. But that does not incorporate assessment growth or the blended impacts. Those are then further down below.
okay, and I think it's important to have those, the full, have a table that has a full impact assessed. In other words, have the right numbers up front before we get to the tables here.
Okay, I'm gonna leave it with Mary for a few moments to digest that, because the only thing I'm worried about is I don't want a number coming out that isn't truly representative of, because it doesn't show the assessment growth, and everybody all of a sudden assumes that they're getting a, you know, their taxes went up 5%. But Mary, I'm gonna let you, you know, work on that a little bit while we discuss this COLA. And then Councilor Spillis, I'm gonna have just ensure that council is supportive of these changes. I understand that they were likely provided in previous reports, but I just want to make sure that council is supportive of all of that. But let's just deal with the COLA. So I'm sorry, you were, did you mention if you were in favor of?
Yes, I was.
option
I
two?
mentioned I was in favor of option 2. I also mentioned that I had a knee-jerk reaction to the 4% last time, so I'm good with going with the 4% as Councilor Goyder.
Excellent. Okay, Councilor Bailey.
Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate the policy and the addition of all the definitions in there. That's really helpful for me. And I hope it's helpful for others that may happen upon reading this policy too. I am in favor of option 2. I do like the idea of undertaking the calculation earlier in the year and incorporating it into the budget at an earlier stage. Then we don't get our knee-jerk reactions as we did this year. So I think moving it from May to May sounds like a good idea. And I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Balmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yeah, I support option 2 as well. I think it's very important that we honor the commitments we've already made, as Councilor Goder suggested, before we take on any new projects or new expenditures. So if there's going to be any cost impact associated with honoring our existing commitments, I think we just have to do a little bit of work on the next report to find out, you know, what are the things, how can we find some savings there to honor our existing commitments. And the other reason I like moving towards the earlier part of the year, is I think it gives also staff an opportunity to sort of have more time to prepare for the changes that are coming. So if they, by doing this earlier in the season, if they need to adjust some of their expenditures, or they see there's going to be a need to find additional savings, it gives them more time to work that out. And I think that's always a good thing. So thank you very much for preparing those reports. It helped everybody understand it a little bit better, and certainly helped me feel more comfortable with honoring the existing commitment. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, I have to, you know, state the obvious that when I saw the number, I did a knee-jerk reaction. But I'm also very proud of council, because they didn't just pass a resolution that thou shalt have a 2%. We recognize that there was, you know, still work to be done on the budget, and we asked that just a 2% placeholder be held. And then we went back and, we realized that, we shouldn't arbitrarily change things. And if we're not happy with the policy, let's look at the policy. And in the current environment, I suspect inflation is going to continue to be a difficult one to deal with in the next budget year. So if we were to penalize staff, it would just, bite us in the backside next year. And that's the other component is, moving it to May to me makes sense, because if we need to find, some savings, it shouldn't be on the backs of the staff every year. And I'm not saying that was the intent of council. It's just the way the policy was written. It was one of the last items we saw. Well, it made it an easier choice to make at the time. So this way, our director of finance is quite brilliant. If it means deferring capital projects or some other source to find the savings, I'm sure we can do it and still service the community well. So sounds that the COLA for option 2 is the direction to go, and that to stick to our commitment of the 4% of the previous policy that's been in place since, I think, identified as 2016. Now I just want to have some conversation around just the items that Councillor Sapoulis mentioned. I'm pretty certain he's correct that most of them were there previously, just not necessarily written in the policy that they be there, but I want to make sure that council is supportive of the items he's asked for, and my children are coming downstairs to get me. So I will close my camera for a moment and I'll turn it over to Councillor Goyda.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm supportive of all of the additions of the items that Councillor Sapoulis has brought up. The one number though that does make me nervous is in that the proposed tax levy impact chart, that difference of 228,642, that
Mary, could you share your screen real quick, please?
5.18 or 19% increase. Pardon? Oh, sorry.
I want Mary to maybe share her screen. So
yeah, so that 228,642 divided by the 4.405770 equates to a almost 2% increase, but that's before the assessment growth and assessment changes. And I'm nervous that putting that number, that 5.2%, as Mayor Seeley mentioned, is going to raise alarm bells. So I'm reluctant to put that percentage number in there without incorporating the assessment growth. All the other items I support. It's just that one makes me nervous.
okay, thank you, Councillor Goyda. Give you a chance, Councillor Sapoulis.
No, if that makes you nervous, that's fine. I can calculate that out on my own, work from that. I'm fine with that too.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, I can see, I can appreciate putting the calculated percentage in, just so that we know where we're working with. We kind of know what maybe our ceiling is. I'm just wondering if within the report it can say this is the temporary number, and like just making it clear that it's where we're starting from, and this will change. Like a little side note or something. I don't know, in order to make it clear that this is not the number we're going to end with. I don't know.
The problem is, and I'm going to interject, and I try not to do this, is that the press doesn't pick up on the little asterisk that says this this number isn't a complete formula, and then it goes out to the press that it's going up 6%, and then like our budget year last year we ended up at 0 or 0.9, close enough to 0. So that's my concern. That's why it makes me nervous as well, Councillor Bailey.
Mm-hmm. Just wonder if we can find a term for it. I don't know.
I'd prefer just not to have it in there unless if Councillor Sapoulis is happy figuring it out for himself, or it's a complete number with the growth, then I'm okay. But unless it has all the information and a very accurate number, I prefer not to have it out to, I don't like lighting fires that don't need to be put out.
Yep.
It makes my phone ring a lot.
Yeah.
So
Otherwise, I'm fine adding in what what's been in before. It sounds like there's nothing new, actually. It's just putting in what's been in the past. So that's fine with me.
Excellent. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yeah, to be fair to Councillor Spoulis, he's absolutely right. All the information he's asking for is already there. I think he's just asking for it to be presented as it was previously. For example, how much revenue does it generate for the corporation when we have a 1% increase in the levy? It was in our previous report on this budget. It just wasn't explicit in this report over the budget. No issue there. I think that's a great. I think it's great to bring. It helps us when we're looking for savings. When we're trying to translate saving 0.5% or 1/4% or something, how much dollar figures are we looking for? So I think it's a helpful, it's a guiding piece of information. So I think it's great. I always do those calculations in terms of looking at the actual absolute increase and converting it to a percentage. And I'm not afraid of that, not at all. That's my job. If there's a question out there, I have no problem being explicit with it. If I have to explain it, I'm accountable for it. That's okay with me. And it is a real number. And anybody can take those numbers and generate that percentage. So putting it out there, and I don't think it's anything but helpful, especially for us to see what is the actual increase in expenditures compared to the cost of the CPI. So I'm not as concerned about it. Maybe it's because I'm not the mayor and my phone doesn't ring as often as yours, perhaps. But my job is to take those calls. So I'm not afraid of putting that number in there if Councillor Spoulis wants it there.
Mary, do you need any further direction on that?
So sorry, I'm not quite clear what the consensus was on that. I'm sorry, can everyone still see my screen?
Yes, we can. At the time it was 2 to 3, but I'm not trying to hide anything. I just want to make sure it's accurate. So I'll go back to Councillor Sapoulis.
Yeah, I'll take out the request for putting actual percent here. As Council Boomer is, I calculate it always, and I work from that, but it's no big deal. I can calculate it, just to divide the two numbers and there's a percent.
All right. There's your consensus there, Ms. Hassan.
Yes, so there will be no resolution on this matter then. But I guess the way the report is already prepared is sufficient then. That's what I'm hearing.
Well,
For that one specific item.
well, we're going to have what a tax results in a 1%, how much money we get from a 1% tax increase.
Okay, perfect. So then I guess Courtney can just share the resolution on the screen with everyone then.
I believe I just want to go through the Schedule A report just real quick, make sure everybody's comfortable with it. I think that's the end of it, right? It starts on page, I don't believe there's any revisions other than the COLA. I just want to make sure council knows that. It starts on page 7 of the agenda package, and it's our budget development control policy. It's in the report. Other than COLA, Mrs. Sand, there's no other changes?
The other changes are shown in red and strike throughs just based on what council's direction was from the capital budget meeting in October.
Okay, so I'm going to ask generally, is there any concerns with the items identified in red and stroked through, starting on page 7 of the agenda? Councillor Goida?
And no issues. All good.
Councillor Spoulis?
I'm good.
Okay, Councillor Bailey?
No, I don't think I had any questions.
Great. And okay, so oh, sorry, Councillor Bummer?
Thank you. Yes, I must admit my clean copy made much more sense when I read it than the strike through copy, which it sounded like a lot of gobbledygook to me, but thank you. It makes sense.
Okay, so I think now we can see the resolution, Ms. Whitefox, if you have it available.
Yes, Mary, if you just wanted to reduce your screen share there, and then I can share mine. Thanks. All right, so I can just read it out. So that report FIN 2022-001 regarding budget development and control policy final be received, and that council adopt the amendments to the budget development and control policy attached to Schedule A to report FIN 2022-001, and that council direct staff to amend the budget development and control policy attached as Schedule A to report FIN 2022-001 based on option 2 outlined in report FIN 2022-001 for the cost of living adjustment, and that staff include the following information in future budget reports after MPAC has provided the roll return, and it's the 1% tax rate increase amount with the assessment growth.
Wasn't there two components, Councillor Spoulos?
I'm okay the way staff are putting it together. I'm not gonna push it too much. I don't want too much debate on it. This one's fine. I'm okay with that. I can live with that. The other stuff I'll calculate.
Okay, can I get a mover for that, please?
I'll move.
Okay, seconder.
I'll second.
Councillor Goida. Okay, comments, Councillor Goida.
No comments. In favor.
Okay, Councillor Spoulos.
In favor?
Councillor Bailey.
In favor.
Councillor Bulmer.
In favor.
Excellent. So that's carried. Next one, 9.22, Finance 2022-002, Mrs. San. Loser.
Sorry, I was on mute. So I'll just share my screen. This is just an update based on the last direction that we received in October and November, and also more current information being available to staff. I can go through each page, and if there's any questions from council, they can be addressed. I guess the council resolution should also include what I heard from the last report is that the 4% COLA has been approved by council. So we'll incorporate that in the council resolution, Ms. White Fox, and then I can just go through each page. Is that okay with you, Mayor Seeley?
It is, if it goes smooth. If so, I'll let you go first. And you know what? I'm going to do it.
Okay, sounds good.
But what I will ask of you is that you keep sharing your screen and just try to keep the items that we're discussing on the screen. So council, we'll start on page 25 of our agenda package. This is the first item. A lot of these really don't need decision, but just to make sure. So a little bit further down, start at, yeah, there we go. So this one is, the first one is the annual funding the township receives from the province to recover the cost of providing the conservation land tax incentive program. We're on page 25 of the agenda. If I'm going too fast, please just interject. I can't see every member on my Zoom. So just interject. And I'm just wondering if any council has any concerns with that. Just more for information. The next one is for the railways, an assessment of total payment in lieu for railways. Any questions or comments around that? Just please interject. No. The payment in lieu for the city of Guelph. I believe the CA was working on this too, so we might see some reimbursement for that in the future.
Just comment on that if I could, Mr. Chair.
Sure, Councillor Bulmer.
Yes, noted here that their dollar figures were given for source water protection and septic inspections, things like that. And I recognize that those are explicitly on the table for discussion. What I didn't get from the report was the peer review costs for other projects or other studies that are done with relation to their water system that's in the township. And are those costs on the table for discussion for us to recover our peer review costs for whenever they're proposing to create a new source water protection area in the township with a new well, or when, such as for tier 3, additional work in the tier 3, or the proposed new well at you know, on Maltby Road, or the master plan, all those sorts of things that I just wondered from the CAO could give us an update on whether those peer review costs are on the table for discussion with the city as well.
Mr. CAO.
Sure. That is going to be on our schedule for the next point of discussion. the first step that we wanted to get to was these direct costs that we're incurring right now. The second aspect was going to be the retroactive costs that we've had for those to this point. So that we're looking into the budget year for next year. And then part of the discussions that we're going to be having for this year is for that specific thing that you just talked about, Councilor Balmer, you know, peer review costs for ongoing studies as well, because those are direct costs that we have out of pocket to resulting from their operations. So those are the two items that are on the table for discussion in the future. Yes.
Super, thank you so much.
Perfect. Any other discussion around that item? Also, Mrs. Sand, if I skip over something that you need direction on and we didn't provide it, please just interject and ask me to return to it. Okay, please. Okay, next one, I think if you scroll down is township benches, staff report. Some options for donations. Any comments? Okay. Frisbee golf course. Any comments on this one? Okay, I don't know if this is the appropriate place, probably under user fees, but are people from the public, they're going to be able to use, if this is created, they're going to be able to use it just casually as walking on and throwing a Frisbee. It's not going to have to be rented all the time. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I can kind of answer that. Yeah, the intention will be that they'll be permanently installed. At this time, it will be no cost to the public. Basically show up with your Frisbee and they'll be there throughout the year to be utilized.
Okay, and then if they're rented, then they'd have exclusive use of it because they rented it.
Yes, in the future, we can look at actually securing certain times for certain rental opportunities.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, excuse me for a second here. I just want to clarify. We're not proposing to install anything permanently at this time. We're talking about the option to. And are you talking about then having a situation where there could be exclusive use of Fox Run or just exclusive use of a soccer pitch where someone had brought portable baskets? I just want to make sure that we divide these up as they're divided up in the report when we're talking about them. Is that okay, Mr. Chair?
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks. Could you just sort of restate your answer, but confirm which park and what setup you're talking about there, Mr. Fowler? Thank you.
So either park could be utilized. It's just about securing a specific date and time that Frisbee golf could be played. Obviously, it would have to correlate with soccer or baseball, but that is something that, you know, the services could let the possible renter know, and then we could establish a time that they could use the soccer field for portable nets, or they could use Fox Run. I mean, Fox Run will be available every day of the week, so I don't foresee a huge demand for this, but it's just another option that the township can offer its residents.
But at this time, the money to install those permanent nets is not in the budget. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
I wasn't quite certain on that. I thought it was in there, so it's just for information. All right, the playground at Borum Park and the PCC Park. Any comments on that? No. The aggregate levy changed. Bridge culvert inspections, that was the 19.9, I believe, right? So any comments on that? All right. Concession 7, paving. Any comments, any concerns, any changes? No. For the radio system, we went through that a while ago. PCC and interior aesthetics. Any comments on that based on discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask some questions of staff.
Sure.
Yeah, I saw the response with respect to the ceiling tiles. I'd like to understand, first of all, a couple of things. Are we replacing the fixtures outright, or are we just strictly replacing the bulbs with LED bulbs?
So the fixtures will be replaced outright. The fixtures and ballast will have to be in line to accept the new LED lighting. So the fixtures will be replaced from the old fixtures.
Okay, are the fixtures independently suspended or laid on top of the existing ceiling?
They're independently suspended.
Okay, and then the suggested repair work on that is painting. Is the intent to paint paint the tiles as well?
No, so the quote that I received was to paint the T-bars as instructed by council and to replace with an upgraded ceiling tile.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, good, good. That wasn't quite clear. And do you know if the existing tiles have asbestos in them?
Before we commenced the commercial kitchen, we had a material survey and testing done for the building, and the ceiling tiles came back as non-asbestos.
Oh, that's great news. That certainly would up the cost. Okay, that's all I have, Mr. Mayor. I'm good.
Mr. Fowler, would it not facilitate replacing the lights by removing the tiles and for them to paint? So the tiles have to come out to paint the T-bars. Then wouldn't it be a good time to do the lights and then replace the tiles? And I understand in the questions there doesn't look to be any cost savings, but to me, it looks like they might pull the tiles out, put them back in, then somebody's going to come along and pull the tiles out and put new ones back in. Is that how the process is going to happen? They're going to come out twice?
The logistics would dictate that. Basically, the contractor that would be responsible for doing the ceiling tile will not be responsible for the lights, so they would have to bring in a separate electrician. The concern is that different trades basically tripping over each other at the same time, trying to complete work. We also have an audio system within the ceiling that requires to be dismantled and then either reinstalled or look at a different type of audio system for the PCC. And the third, we'll say hindrance will be the smoke detectors, which then have to be disassembled and basically taken offline from the alarm company, reinstalled, and then put back into service. So there's a lot of working parts, which I understand. It seems like a fairly simple job of just replacing a ceiling tile with a new one, but there's a lot of other logistics involved that really kind of complicates things.
Could any of this work be funded with the grant we received for PCC grounds?
I will let Mrs. San answer that.
So the PCC grounds grant is very specific in terms of it is the grounds, like it's not inside the facility. The application that we submitted for that project.
Okay, that wasn't the answer I wanted. Is it not within the ability of staff to remove the ceiling tiles if this project goes forward? So that all that the contractors encounter are the T-bars and the lights hanging from their independent supports, and then thus we're eliminating the duplication and save some cash? Or is the savings by doing it ourselves negligible and not worth the difficulty? I'll go to Mr. C. Always goes hand up.
Once we have authorization to go ahead with this, what we're going to do, like we as Mr. Fowler indicated, we received a quote from the contractor that's there doing some of the work now. But what we're going to do once we have authorization to proceed is to look at, a multitude of options when we go forward. What's the best way? Can staff do component of it? Should we have different contractors, different types of contractors, those types of things? So once we get the go ahead, we're going to look at the most cost effective way to proceed with this.
Is this another one where the 35 is not in the budget, or is it already in there as a placeholder?
Mayor Sealy, it is not in the budget.
So this would likely be 2023 project at best.
I'll let Mr. Fowler speak to that.
Well, I'm just thinking money-wise, Mary. It's not in this budget, so unless we did some sort of change, that's okay. We'll move on. We'll have to
If I
decide
may,
whether we
Mr.
want to
Mayor?
find 35. No, sure, go ahead.
So upon further inspection at the PCC in the past couple of years, there has been quite noticeable water stain marks in the existing ceiling tile. So to be prudent, it would probably best to have the roof inspected first before we went ahead to install these new ceiling tiles, which I'm quite certain with at around 2026, we are slated to have the roof replaced in the asset management. So these are things that should be considered before we just go ahead and start replacing ceiling tiles right now.
Which brings up a valid point. I know ceiling tiles individually are only valued at, I don't know, I haven't bought a ceiling tile, a few dollars, I would assume, or tens of dollars. But the total project is above our policy of an asset being $5,000 should be included in the asset management plan. Mrs. Sand, should these be included in the asset management plan or on a replacement schedule?
Sorry, the ceiling tiles?
Correct.
Yes,
Are they?
they should be.
Are they though? So if they are, that's where that'd be
Not at
perfect.
this time. It's not itemized in that manner. So if council's direction is to incorporate this in a future budget year, it could be incorporated in the capital budget and forecast and with the roof inspection, if that's what Mr. Fowler recommends.
Okay, I like some direction here. When's a good time to have the conversation around having council discuss putting this into the asset management plan? Comfortable doing that today, or should it come at a later time? Thoughts, Mrs. Sand? Or
Well,
Glenn?
I would prefer that the capital forecast be as accurate as possible. So if it's something that council wants staff to look into in the future, then it would be nice if it was in the forecast.
All right, let's have a quick conversation around this. Council was aware that we have a policy in place that any asset over 5,000 be included in the asset management plan. It appears that this ceiling tile replacement as a whole meets that threshold. So as Mrs. Sand just identified, it'd be better to be in the capital plan. So Councilor Guida. The loser, I can't see if she's here or not.
She's muted.
Oh, there she is.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Sorry. I would agree that the ceiling tiles should be in the asset management plan. I think if we were to proceed with repairing it, that's the fund that would pay for the replacement of them. So that's where it should be in the long-term forecast as well. So I think it should be in there, and I think that we should be looking at doing that work in terms of the roof inspection and the ceiling tile replacement, possibly in the year 2023.
Okay, Councilor Spillis.
yes, I would agree that we should put it as part of the asset management plan. In terms of the roofing, it makes sense, as Mr. Fowler's indicated, that we should do the roofing inspection first, do any repairs, and then do the tiles. And I guess I look at this as a facility we want to rent, and the sooner we can get on and fix up the roof leak and then move to the redoing the tiles, the better it is for us to gain revenue.
Councilor Bailey.
Yeah, it makes sense to put it in the asset management plan, be able to budget properly for it. I'm assuming we're not waiting to do roof inspection, but it's just sort of an ongoing inspection for it. Make sure we're not getting too far behind in that.
Mr. Fowler?
Yeah, so currently in the past, when we've either identified a leak in the municipal office or the PCC org, we try to coordinate where the leak is in the roof, and then it is repaired. But as far as having the complete roof inspected and repaired, records indicate we haven't done that in quite a while. So it's kind of, we respond when we need to fix a leak, but as far as doing a complete overhaul or complete inspection, I don't believe that has been done to date.
And I feel you're trying to say is that you don't want to replace the ceiling tiles until you do a roof inspection, because once they're water stained, they're junk again. So
That's correct. And again, it's you're kind of chasing your tail if you don't fix the leak and you're constantly changing tiles.
So, Mr. Chair, I'm wondering if that asset needs to be moved up in the plan.
I'm comfortable with leaving it with staff. They know now that it's going to be included in the asset management plan and it hasn't been inspected. And is council
Yep.
comfortable with that? They've heard that we want them changed. Mr. Fowler, what's the cost of the inspection? Is it, I assume, a professional to bring in?
Yeah, currently the contractor we have on our vendors list, it's Ned Law Roofing. The inspection is actually quite not very expensive. I am concerned at the initial cost of repairing the roof, but I don't have any figures to report on at this time.
Councillor Bailey?
No, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you.
Well, I'm starting to sense that there's a bit of direction that we want the roof looked at in 2023. Councillor Gordon made some reference to it. I can tell by your question line. Seems like you're wondering if this should go forward sooner. I'll maybe go to Councillor Balmer and then we'll come back. Councillor Balmer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I think we have to also keep in mind, we have to differentiate between ceiling maintenance and ceiling replacement of all of them. Over the years, there's been several times when there's been a discrete leak in the roof someplace, typically, and often it's in the same place again and again due to the architectural design of the building or fasteners becoming loose. Typically, if there's water damage, it's not the entire ceiling that needs to be replaced. So if there's a drip or a drop and a few tiles need to be replaced, I don't think that's not what we're talking about putting on the asset management plan. But I do agree with the fact that just like if it was the floor, I don't know even if the floor is on the asset management plan for a scheduled resurfacing or replacement, much like the kitchen was on the asset management plan. So what I'm hearing is that there are some maintenance concerns regarding individual leaks in the roof that need to be addressed as they occur. And then there's a, major inspection for major overhaul perhaps of the roof. And again, same thing with the ceiling tiles, ongoing maintenance. If we keep on hand replacement tiles that can be put up when they get stained, after that, the leak that stained them is fixed, that's ongoing maintenance. But certainly adding the ceiling as a whole in the asset management plan, no issue with it. Used to be a bigger issue when there was smoking in the building. They would get stained regularly and have to be replaced more often or be painted over. So I have no issue, but I'm not in a panic about it either.
Okay, yeah, I'm of the same opinion. I mean, I feel that, we may replace them in the near future, then they'll have a very long lifespan with, individual repairs being made through, say, operating budget. But then at some point, the remainder of the tiles, even if they haven't been replaced due to some damage, have come to the end of their life and it's time for a full replacement. I'll leave that immerization up to staff. I'm looking for council to give Mike a little bit of direction on whether you want to do a roof inspection, because Mike, what I'm hearing is, am I hearing that there's a possibility there isn't leaks and you could do the ceiling tiles? There hasn't been an inspection, so you're not truly aware of the condition of the roof. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, I tend to agree completely with Councillor Balmer. There are individual leaks that have been identified. It's just the fact of once we have an inspection done, I fully expect to find a lot more leaks that we didn't know about. And the cost to repair them is what I'm currently concerned about. So I can have the roof, inspected within the next month and, the real damaging leaks repaired. I just don't know what the inspection is going to come back with as far as scope of work.
Right. So in my mind, I think we're going to have a brand new kitchen. If we could facilitate that with new tiles, and I think the floor was recently redone in the previous term of council, we'd have quite a nice facility, and possibly, I don't know, Mr. Fowler, I don't know what the condition of the walls are in. They need some paint, but So usually you're able to absorb that through your current staff. My concern is, and this is going to maybe sound terrible, but if we do a roof inspection, are we talking we're going to find out that we have a $500,000 problem on the roof, or what's your thoughts?
No, I don't. I'm not expecting that type of figure, but it is not out of the possibility that it could run, tens of thousands of dollars.
Okay, well, that's to me more palatable than hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it puts a lot more pressure on the asset management plan. Council, are you interested in having Mr. Fowler look into the integrity of the roof and then develop a plan for replacement of the ceiling tiles and all that good stuff? Councillor Goyda.
I think it would be a good idea to have the roof inspected. I think that, especially since we're putting the new kitchen in, and we're talking about putting new ceiling tiles in, it would be a shame to do all that work only to find out that there's a problem with the roof later. So I think it would be a good idea to find out what kind of shape the roof is in, and if there are some issues that we can fix internally, then get those done. And if there's bigger issues that need to be budgeted for, then at least we can plan for those. But I would like to get the ceiling tiles done in 2023, but I don't know that that is a good idea if there's an issue with the roof. So it's hard to make those decisions without having the full picture. To me, it makes the most sense to find out if we need to fix it and what we need to fix and how much it's going to cost before we go ahead with the other components.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Spose.
I agree, we should do the roof assessment this year. I was just wondering if Mr. Fowler requires us to authorize some funds to do the inspection.
Mr. Fowler.
Yeah, I guess just going through the operating for the PCC, I do not feel that I would have adequate funds to complete an inspection within budget. So I would say a couple $1,000s. But again, I would have to get more concrete figures once I was able to contact the contractor.
So, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we allocate a budget of, say, up to $5,000 to be confirmed by staff to undertake an inspection of the roof prior to any permanent tile rework.
Okay, can I get a seconder for that, please? My cameras. Somebody second it? I didn't see anybody. Councillor Good? Okay, excellent. I'll go back to you, Councillor Good, just real quick. You sound like you're supportive of it.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I would support that.
Okay. Councillor Willis, do you need to speak again?
No, I'm good on that.
Okay, Councillor Bailey?
Yeah, thanks. I didn't realize we were going to get into a discussion about the roof today. I'm just reading in the report here. It just says staff to report back on the cost to enhance the interior aesthetics. I haven't been in the building in a while. We've put in, talk about painting the ceiling tiles and stuff. Is it really necessary? Or is it something that can wait a few more years until the asset management of the roof and then do it then? I haven't been in years now to know how the ceiling tiles are actually looking.
Mr. Fowler?
In my opinion, by no means is the roof collapsing or there's ceiling tiles or paint hanging off the ceiling. We have some areas identified that have leaks in the roof. Ceiling tiles are discolored and damaged from the water, but I mean, the roof is currently intact. All the lighting is working. Is it the freshest white? No. I think the direction of replacement is the way is what I would recommend. To paint ceiling tiles, it's fresh for a while, but it doesn't seem to last. Again, if we can ever get this building opened up to the public, I'm quite confident it's very presentable for rentals as as it sits now, with a little bit of ceiling repair that could be done in-house.
Okay. Councillor Bailey?
So, so I kind of am leaning towards just leaving it as it is. Not needing a
So-
full roof inspection right now.
Can I offer some clarification?
Yes, please.
So where we're at right now is we're just going to have Mr. Fowler look at the integrity of the exterior roof, and that Mary will be incorporating replacement of all of the ceiling tiles at some point through the asset management plan. That could be a later discussion. I'm more in favor with Councillor Goyda earlier than later, but that component, the timing of the full replacement of the tiles, really isn't a detrimental decision at this point, because we need to find out about the roof above it first. If we find out there's major repairs for it and there's major costs associated, then maybe council will decide to just replace some tiles. But maybe because of ongoing construction and delays, instead of having to close the PCC at a later point in time and lose rentals, it's closed now. Maybe we decide it's advantageous to do it right now. So I wouldn't hang up on whether the full ceiling needs to be replaced at this moment, but the decision to be made is, should it as a full replacement be placed in the asset management plan at a certain amortization time, 10 years, 20 years, whatever Mary and Mike decide. But the major decision is to find out how the integrity of the roof above those ceiling tiles. Councillor Bailey?
Yes, yes. Okay, fair enough. Yep, that's fine. Okay, so we're looking at just putting in a little budget for the inspection and then moving that 30 to 35 potentially into asset management.
Correct.
And I'm fine with that. That's reasonable. Yep.
That's my understanding, unless I hear different from the other councillors.
Yeah.
Councillor
Okay.
Ballmer.
If I could, Mr. Fowler, is the roof leaking now?
I would say yes.
Okay, so, and you know where those leaks are?
We have a good idea.
Okay, and is it something that you have staff taken a shot at fixing it, or have they not, or have you got a contractor lined up to fix those leaks?
I have replaced certain ceiling tiles in the past. We've found it much easier to do now that we've had this scissor lift purchased. We were able to get it in the building and fix the ceiling a lot easier now. Again, I plan on scheduling an inspection, or at least a date for inspection, come next week. So this is something that'll get on right away.
Sorry, my question was, is the roof leaking now, and have you fixed the leaks that you have now?
At this time, no. They were
Okay.
identified just this past fall,
Okay,
and we haven't had a chance to get a contractor in yet.
okay. So you've got an issue now but you're dealing with it, and patching those leaks, you can do that with the existing maintenance budget.
I should be. I'm just going by previous invoices for the same type of work that was accomplished at the administration building. And I do believe it did come in over budget from what I had for an operating budget. It is fairly expensive.
So in my mind, I'm trying to divide these things up into, do we have sufficient funds for ongoing maintenance of the roof and ceiling in the budget? And to the point of the motion that's on the floor right now from Councillor Sapoulas, which does not have a year attached to it, I have no issue with that motion attaching it to the idea of moving the ceiling onto the asset management plan, so that sort of, I see it as an amendment to the idea of putting the replacement of the ceiling on the asset management plan, that with it being on the asset management plan, it automatically includes a roof inspection, as opposed to doing a roof inspection years in advance of the asset of the ceiling being replaced. I see the two as should be more closely linked together. And I want to make sure at this point that we have sufficient funds in the facility budget for ongoing maintenance. And I don't know, does that make sense, Mr. Chair?
I understand where you're coming from. I may not agree with it, but I
No,
understand.
that's fine. I didn't come here to win friends today. But I'd like to separate the two, and I'd like to ask Mr. Councillor Sapoulis if I could, is he comfortable connecting his motion to the replacement of the ceiling so that they're more linked, as opposed to right now they could occur several years apart?
Hey, Councillor Bomer, my intent was to have the inspection done this year. And my intent was also to move the tiles up as soon as possible. In terms of chasing leaks, I don't know if you ever tried chasing a leak down on a flat roof. It's with metal pan ceiling. It's hard to track it down. You may think you have it in one location, and in fact, it's been dripping following a seam or wherever the case is from another location. So my suggestion is that let's get a proper inspection done and seal up the leak. They'll give us the opportunity to see if we caught all the leaks, and we can argue or debate when we do the tiles after we inspect, after we've got a few months or a year, I should say, under our belt of no leaks.
I don't have the same
Okay.
opinion. I think band-aiding an old roof without an inspection is just asking for a maintenance nightmare. We don't, yeah, so I prefer to do the inspection, and we can debate the merit of, doing the tiles sooner or later at another council date, but I'd really like to know what we're up against. Councillor Bulmer?
Yeah, so I thank you for letting me ask those questions of Councillor Sapoulis, and I better understand it now, what the direction is. And to me, it's a matter of gaining information to help us on future asset management planning and help staff to figure out where to put that on the plan. So yeah, I can understand that. I was looking for savings, and sometimes you have to invest a little bit to find those savings long-term wise. So thank you.
Okay. So Mrs. Sand, I believe there's going to be I don't know, where would we fund the 5,000 from?
We could use the asset management plan, and I'll put it in the capital budget. So what I've kind of heard is that there's going to, council would like to have a roof inspection up to 5,000 to be completed in 2022 prior to work on the ceiling tiles. And we'll include the replacement of the ceiling tiles. I'll work with Mr. Fowler as to which year to put it in. And then it can be an item that's discussed in the next budget in 2023 by council.
That works for me. Comfortable with that, Councillor Sapoulis?
Yes, I am.
And I think Councillor Goyda seconded that. You're comfortable with that? Is she there? I can't see her. So.
Yep. Yes,
Yep.
yes.
Okay, so we're going to call the vote. So all in favor, Councillor Goyda?
In favor.
Councillor Sapoulis?
In favor.
Councillor Bailey?
I'm in favor.
Councillor Bulmer?
In favor.
Okay. Back to our budget. What's the next one? Wider shoulder at Leslie Road. Any comment? Don't believe so. Oh, the council, there's nothing here. Council directs staff to report back on the possible cost recovery options. We'll see that in future budgets. The CAO is working on that. And we did the pre-budget approval for the grader. You see that she's included some engine repair, possible transmission repairs in the forecast. OCIF funding, any discussion around using it to pay or help pay for the paving of concession 7? Just interject, please. Yeah, Councillor.
I'd like to speak. The fact that we got stable OCIF funding for the next 5 years gives us an opportunity to accelerate the gravel road improvement. So by having the OCIF offload some of the funds that the asset management plan would have paid for, in other words, the roads and culverts, that gives us an opportunity to shift some of the money from the asset management plan for this year into the, and perhaps the next 5 years, into the gravel roads improvement. So my suggestion, or I'm going to move a motion that for the next 5 years that $50,000 be allocated from the asset management plan to the gravel roads improvement reserve. The fact that OSIF is funding for the next 5 years gives us some certainty and stability. And also, I'd like to point out that the asset management plan contributions did not include the inclusion of OSIF. So there is a really big win here for us that we can take advantage of to improve the gravel roads situation where we have poor sub-bases, lack of proper drainage, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, Mrs. San, the tax levy supported additional contribution to the asset management plan has a number associated with it, does it not? For 2022?
Sorry, so you're asking what is the 2022 tax levy contribution into the asset management plan?
That's in addition to like new, because you the way the budget works, you when I say you, I'm not trying to be offensive, I'm just speaking to the way it's on paper is like 1.4 million gets contributed to the asset management plan, then you allot that 1.4 million through your budget process, but there's always a component of, and I believe the number is around 150K, that's an additional contribution to the asset management plan to ensure its funding in the future, and that's on the levy as well, and I believe it's around 152, is that correct?
Are you talking about the gravel roads improvement reserve?
No, I'm talking about new, here, I got an email from Councilor Spillis, maybe you can help me out. It was a contribution to the asset management plan that could be reduced and moved to the gravel roads discretionary reserve. It was a number.
I was saying $50,000. The point that I'm making is previously in the previous budget, we were going to take funds out of the asset management plan to pay for this particular concession 7. I'm trying to recall the number. I believe it's somewhere in the order of $211,000. So in effect, you've got a contribution. By the fact that OSIF is picking it up, you got a sort of a paper contribution of $211,000 from the OSIP by it absorbing by not taking money out of the asset management plan to pay for concession 7. So what I'm saying is that gives us some elbow room or some space to reduce the asset management plan contribution and increase the contribution to the gravel roads improvement reserve. It's not a net it's a zero tax levy increase. It's basically taking money from one envelope and putting it in the envelope and recognizing that the first envelope's got an infusion of cash by OSIP, picking up some of our roads projects.
Yes, I misread the email, but where I was trying, instead of it being funded by OSIF over 5 years, you know, I was trying to accomplish a similar goal in that if we're using tax levy this year to, along with the OSIF, to increase contributions to the asset management plan to reduce that tax levy that goes to the asset management plan and just shift it over to the gravel roads reserve, as it's a part of the asset management plan anyways. But then that way it's in perpetuity. The improvement in the program remains built after we leave. If we tie it to the OSIF instead, then after the 5 years, then we're in a situation where we're losing the funding. Does that make sense, Councilor Spillis?
It makes sense, but then what you're doing by increasing the tax levy by $50,000, you're basically by increasing the contribution to gravel roads by $50,000, you're increasing the tax levy by 1.2 or whatever percent that is. And I really don't want to go there. I just want to take advantage of the situation for the next 5 years. And after 5 years, or during the course of the 5 years, if we get more than the asset management plan grows considerably because of the OSIP funding, that we may be able to take even more out for the gravel roads reserve. And after 5 years, who knows what's going to happen? But at least for the next foreseeable 5 years, we have a solid revenue stream from OSIP, which we can use to pay for the gravel roads, toward the gravel roads improvement.
And that was the intent. I don't recall the correspondence verbatim, but when it was issued, the intent was for the municipalities to use it as infrastructure funding. I guess I should just play uncle on this one, but I'm just still going to ask Ms. Hassan, are we over contributing to the asset management plan through any tax levy increase in the proposed budget? Or are we basically where we were contributing last year and we just had this OSIP windfall?
Sorry, I just want to see how much we contributed to it last year. One moment, please.
John, I like your idea and I see it as stable funding for 5 years and at a minimum. And we could get a lot of work done, especially since we're not going to reduce the gravel roads reserve this year. So I'm not going to dig my heels in on this one, but if there's a way just to juggle money a little bit and not actually have an impact on the tax levy, because I'm in agreement with you that I do not want to add any tax levy, but if there's a way to juggle and then it's dedicated to the reserve, then I'd be quite happy. I just wanted to hear that answer from Ms. Hassan.
So this year, the amount proposed is 1.3 million, rounded up.
Mm-hmm.
I can give you exact numbers if you'd like, but it's
No, I'm good with,
Okay.
I'm good with that.
And last year it was 1.2 million.
So there's 100,000 in tax levy going in additionally, right?
Yes.
So we could theoretically, is there a way to shift similar to oh my gosh, I'm bouncing all over the place. Is there a way to shift some of that 100K, the equivalent of a 1% tax increase, which we don't know that number now, but it was 42,000, 1% from being put into the asset management plan generically to the gravel roads reserve, then that be offset by the OSIF or no?
So the target that we look at with the asset management reserve is the 2 million to 4 million target balance.
Right.
And just based on the current capital budget and forecast, again, the forecast is showing that we are within the 2 million to 4 million target over the next 10 years.
Okay, I got a better question line. If we reduce the contribution by 42,000, in your opinion, will that have a tangible or not tangible, like an exceptional impact on our projected balances between $2 and $4 million in the foreseeable future?
It will not. It will not have an impact. It won't have a material impact. So if council directs staff to reallocate 42,500 or 50,000, as Councillor Sapoulis said, from the asset management discretionary reserve and reallocate it to the gravel roads improvement reserve, that could be done because we are within the 2 million to 4 million target.
And that's what I would like to see, Councillor Sapoulis, because then the the program is once we'd be at almost completion, where rolling over every year, there's going to be near 200,000. I think the ideal number in my mind is 250 per year into the reserve, because 250 goes into fixing the below ground work, guardrails, culverts. Then the following year, the 250 pays to pave it, and then the program's completed. It won't have a detrimental effect. Then the OSIF money gets just dumped into the asset management plan over the next 5 years generically, and we can still tap into that. What are your thoughts, Mr. Sapoulis?
Well, I think we're debating 2 points. First of all, you're debating the quantum. You're saying 42, whatever number. I'm saying 50. I'm okay.
No,
with
I'm not debating that. Whatever number you choose, I'm good. I'm just.
Okay, so I'm
where it
saying
comes from.
50, you're reporting 42 less, so that's not a debate. And then we're debating the timeline. I'm saying as long as we get the OSIF funding, and you're saying in perpetuity. We can say in perpetuity if you want. It's going to be dependent on future councils type of thing. So
Yeah.
Whatever we say here, at least it'll be over the next term of council when we have the OSIF funding in place. So it works for me. So I'm okay either way, whatever it's, however we can get buy-in from the rest of councils, I'm happy.
So if you're okay, Councilor Spillis, let's see if there's appetite to reduce the that 100,000 that's additionally going in by the 50K that you mentioned. And then it becomes essentially a base budget increase, correct, Mary, to the gravel roads discretionary reserve contribution?
Yes, so I need council's direction. If the number is 50,000,
Right, so it'll be 50.
that 50,000 is reducing the contribution to the asset management discretionary reserve and reallocating it to the gravel roads improvement discretionary reserve from 2022 to whichever year council would like that to occur, so that I can ensure that the forecast is updated accordingly.
I don't like saying this, but it's always a 10-year forecast, but my intention is the program will continue until staff determine they don't want to pave any more roads. And that money should then be allotted to the asset management plan or however staff determines in that long-term future. So I would just suggest, I guess, 10 years, because that's the maximum you can forecast out. Mrs. Sand?
Yes, so we could, if council directs staff, the resolution could indicate that a reallocation of $50,000 of tax levy from the asset management discretionary reserve to the gravel roads improvement discretionary reserve from 2022 to 2031, if that's council's direction.
And just so they can hear it, it's your opinion that won't have, critical implications to our projected balance in our asset management plan from 2 million to 4 million. Essentially, it's all good. It's just moving some money around, in my layman terms.
Based on the current projections and based on the current assets in the capital budget and forecast, we are within the 2 million to 4 million target.
Okay, perfect. So Councillor Spillis moved that. Can I get somebody to second that? I can't see.
I can.
Thank you, Councillor Goyda. Well, that's perfect, because now you can speak to it. Councillor Goyda.
Okay, I may have gotten a little bit lost in there, but the one thing that I would just like to address, and perhaps now is the right time, is that we've just approved a 4% cost of living adjustment. So we now have a total township tax rate that's going to be at 4.27. And I would like to get that down. And my thought and the way to get that down was, I guess, along the same lines as reducing our contribution to the asset management reserve, given many of the same pieces of information that have just been discussed. So I don't know if there's room to fund the gravel roads discretionary reserve and reduce our contribution to reduce the tax levy. I don't know if there's room to do both those things. I agree that it would be great to put more money into that gravel roads reserve. I guess I'm just not entirely understanding what the difference is if we are just allocating $50,000 from the OSIF funding directly to that reserve, as opposed to taking it out of the asset or reducing our asset management contribution and putting it to, I guess I'm not really seeing the difference and the advantage of one or the other. I do support putting more money into the gravel roads reserve. I just can't make sense of where it's going to come, like how the finances of it work best.
So the difference is, Councillor Goyda, The original way that Councillor Spools proposed is you're building a program that, you know, if you think in your mind how many gravel roads we have in the township and how long it'll take to pave all the ones that should be paved, and we don't need to get into the merits of, you know, the criteria that calls for it, because at some point, I believe that staff will just decide to pave roads and upgrade them. But that program, if you're only able to pave a road once every 2 years or 3 years, that program could take a very long time, which is, you know, in my mind, if you have 10 roads, that's 13 years, right? Math, 30 years, whatever the math is, it takes a very long time. So if you build a program based on grants that are going to no longer be in place in 5 years, then in 5 years, you're going to either put the program in jeopardy, or there's going to be maybe, especially with costs increasing, significant challenges for the future councils. If we build the program based on, you know, the motion proposed right now, then that program will be fully funded, or more likely to be fully funded, for the entirety of the program. And if OSIP doesn't, you know, get significantly reduced in 5 years, well then, you know, that's more of an adjustment through the asset management plan over a much longer period of time. And then, you know, they can work their magic on delaying capital projects, things of this nature. So for me, the way it's proposed, it ensures it's funded stability whole past 5 years and throughout its intended lifespan. Does that help at all?
In a sense, but so we're already contributing 157,000 and change to the gravel roads reserve. So I think what Councillor Sapoulis is
Lost you. Shoot.
saying is for the next 5 years, that contribution would be, I guess, $207,000, which does seem like a decent contribution to that reserve over the next 5 years. But I guess what I'm hearing is your concern is after that 5 years is over, then we go back down to the 157,000, and that isn't perhaps not adequate to keep the program moving forward.
And the reason why I've taken that position is once we saw the costing of concession 7, which is, I could maybe ask Mr. Fowler, but it was one of the roads they identified that would need the least amount of work to surface treat. And it came in, you know, not being critical of Mr. Fowler, you know, quite higher than what we expected. So it was, you know, what's going to happen once we get into these other roads that have more challenges than concession 7. You know, like I mentioned earlier, the underground work, the prep work to upgrade a gravel road for potential surface treatment, I think that cost is going to be significantly higher, and the 157 is not nearly sufficient unless you want to, you know, then it becomes, well, now you have to wait every 6, 7, 8 years before you can do a road, and I think that's too long. So I'll go back to you, Councillor Guida.
Okay, perhaps I could ask then another question. Coming back to my point of the levy coming down, the difference in the COLA, is it now the appropriate time to I feel that they both are connected, but is this the appropriate time to talk about that as well?
The COLA has been approved.
I know,
So-
but the end levy right now is at 4.27%, and I think that needs to come down. And my thought was to do that through the asset management reserve contribution. So to me, the
Okay.
two are tied, but I don't know.
Maybe I'll leave it with you for a moment. I'll go around the table and see what the appetite is. And we may have to have a discussion on whether we're comfortable with the 4.27, the blended rate of 2.11. Is that correct, Ms. Hassan?
Sorry, just give me one moment. I just updated the budget model with the 4%. And I'm just confirming. It is 4.27% and 2.11.
2.11.
Plus the money we added for the inspection over the roof.
She said that could come out of the asset management plan, Councillor Boomer.
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
2.11. So I'll just go around the table back to the gravel roads reserve, get some initial comments, and then I might change our discussion around where we want the budget to be at. Councillor Bailey.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate your clarification because now I'm catching up. Yeah, I really like being able to use the OSIF funding, and how I'm understanding it is that, or maybe someone can clarify, putting the full amount. So the allocation is 331,262. So is the proposal to put that total amount into asset management and then pull it out to pave the road, or can it go directly to concession 7 paving? Like,
Mrs. Sanders, correct, but I believe
yeah.
263,000 of the OSIF funding is going directly to paving concession 7. So the balance would, I should read it.
Yes.
The
that's
balance
correct.
goes to asset management is what's being proposed?
Yes, so it's 63,000 to concession 7, and then the 68,262 to Gilmore Culvert in order to utilize the full allocation of 331,262.
So I
So
don't
then
know, I'll
what's
let
left
you go
over?
a little bit.
So then
It's
there's nothing.
it's all been assigned, Councillor Bailey. It's more you know, whether you're comfortable reducing the contribution to the asset management plan because the modeling shows it's funded, and then supporting the or not supporting, you know, increasing the gravel road discretionary reserve. I've managed to, you know, Councillor Spoulos just to convince them to at least table the base budget increase is what it boils down to. So that's kind of where the conversation's around, is whether you feel that the asset management plan is funded sufficiently as provided with the information today to reduce a contribution by 50,000 to help fund the program for paving roads.
Yeah, and I am comfortable with that, based on what Mary said, that it'll still keep us within the 2 to 4 million. So I'm comfortable with that part. And then allocating it to the gravel roads, I think is a good use of OSIF funding.
Okay. And then we're
I'm
going to
just
come
still
back.
caught up in the timing of it, but.
Okay. And I'm going to come back, I think, and talk about where we're comfortable at budget wise as a whole. Councillor Bulmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Of the two options, I must admit I prefer Councillor Spoulos' approach. But overall, we don't even have the road study back yet to know if any of the remaining gravel roads warrant hard surfacing. Several of them certainly warrant improvements to the base structure. I need it, but whether they warrant surface treatments, because we know from the BMA reports that we get that a hard surface road has a life cycle cost roughly double of a good quality gravel road. So before you know, as Councillor Goyda indicated, we're already contributing $150,000 a year to this new gravel roads improvement, which is necessary because the maintenance, you know, they need it. They need to have that improvement. The thing is, all inside asset management, the OSIF funding we get goes largely towards asset management. And to Councillor Goyda's point, I think I'm also looking for some savings here. I'm not looking to, I might have other uses for that, but you might consider the contribution to the asset management plan, instead of putting it to the roads improvement. I might have other places for it. Anyhow, and the OSIF funding, we're going to get it anyway, and it's going to be there whether we assign it to a specific reserve or it just becomes part of the asset management plan. It's still there for future use by all councils. So my preference would be that it doesn't go towards that. I'd rather have that road study before we do either of these things, to be honest. But if I had to choose one, I'd choose Councillor Sepoulis's and say, well, we'll dedicate 50,000 of the OSEF for the next 5 years towards increasing the contributions to the gravel roads, rather than this levy funding to increase contributions to the gravel roads, which is, I think, is already well funded. So thank you.
Thank you. I understand your desire for the roads plan, but pretty sure we could have received a report that says none of the roads qualify to be paved. And it's clear to me through the community, people want their roads paved. You know, and they do bring their own set of issues once they're paved. But if the report indicates that none of the roads technically meet the requirement to be paved, then council and staff have decisions to make. And that is to whether you call it arbitrary or just good decision making by council to pave roads for our constituents, because that's what they want. We have different people living on these roads, and I get that we have to upgrade them through you know, the subsurface and that first. And but I don't believe it shall stop at that point. There is going to be some roads that maybe remain gravel, but for me, I believe most constituents desire to live on a paved road. So that's why it's important to me to have this funded through, you know, reoccurring funding, not OSIF, and the asset management plan is in good shape. Also, there may be, you know, maybe the conversation is to reduce the contribution a little bit further to offset the tax increase, you know, because it is funded well and it is getting this influx of OSIF money, that if through good management we don't spend all this OSIF money, it'll be there for the future. Councillor Sepoulis, you're still comfortable tabled with your resolution?
I want to get this through one way or the other, Mr. Mayor. I really don't want this to lose on the floor and we get zero. So
well, there's always the option for the next, your other, we'll deal with this one, and if it fails, then you have your other option to propose.
fair enough. We'll do that way. We'll have two motions before the floor. One being a motion for $50,000 to be reallocated from the asset management plan to the gravel roads improvement for the next 10 years, and we can do that.
That was tabled, so it was seconded by Councillor Goyda, so I'll call the vote. Councillor Goyda?
Sorry, I'm lost. What is tabled right now? That it's being funded from the asset management reserve?
The motion is that $50,000 from the asset management plan be reallocated to the gravel roads improvement reserve for the next 10 years.
So that's the base budget increase formula, Councillor Goyda.
Okay, but
So that doesn't increase the base budget at all, Mr.
No,
Mayor.
sorry, but it's essentially, it is for the gravel, the contribution. It's the one you weren't really in favor of, Jessica,
yes,
because you wanted to use it to offset the tax.
I don't know how to amend the motion, or but I guess what I'm saying is I can't finalize my decision on it until we have the discussion about the final tax rate first.
I'll postpone the vote. I don't know if that's procedurally proper. We can go around the table and have a quick discussion on where councillors are comfortable being at with the budget. Councillor Sepoulis?
Overall budget, I understand where Councillor Goyda is coming from, but I look at the blended rate, it's 2.11. If you do analysis of the budget, there's three extraordinary items that pushed it to around a 3% increase. First of all is insurance. That came in at over 50K. That's over 1%. That's a big hit that we didn't anticipate. Second of all, we want a permanent full-time bylaw officer. That's another big hit. I don't know what the exact number is, but it's probably close to 1%. Then thirdly, we hired an extra operator. That's another big budget effect. So in effect, those three items, to my mind, add a 3% increase. without those three items, we would have been, and we pay for the coal, of course, we would have been around 2%. But I'm comfortable in the fact that the yearly blend, that the annual blended rate is 2.11. So taxpayer, that's a good deal. It's a blended rate. Last year, I'm looking at the numbers, the blended rate was 1.74. So we're 0.36 or a third of a percent higher than last year. And we're adding in 2 staffing positions, and we're paying for a hiccup in insurance premium.
Okay. Great response, Councillor Spoulos. Councillor Bailey.
Thank you. Sorry, Mary, this question's back to you. I know you said that the asset management plan would be fine in the 2 to 4 million range. Was that over the 10-year projection?
Yes, that was over the 10-year projection, Councillor Bailey.
Okay. Okay.
But as we all know, new projects arise, right? So
Yeah.
I just wanted to
Yeah.
provide that disclaimer to council.
Yeah. Okay. I was just clarifying that it wasn't just for next year. Okay. So, Mr. Chair, what do you need from me right now? Do you want me to vote on what's tabled? or-
No, we're
Okay.
just having some comment on the proposed budget at 2.11 blended rate, 4.27, it'll actually be 4.23 because the count, well, maybe that doesn't work quite right. The county's budget's at 2%. So anyways, where you are on that proposed budget as it is in front of you.
Yeah. Well, of course, I'd love to see it lower, but I'm not seeing anything unreasonable in the budget that's bothering me. So I don't really have anything more to add.
Okay, Councillor Ballmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm a little confused, but I was going to ask a question about the motion we were going to vote on before we went off on this tangent. Or sorry, I must admit, I was coming into the meeting looking at about, I'd like to get just under 3.9 for ourselves, and which would be a nicer blended. I understand Councillor Spoulos' points that those are all some difficult numbers, especially the insurance. But hey, we shouldn't have been surprised. It was an unbelievably good bargain we had when we changed, but that can't last forever with all the things we've seen going on in the world. So I must admit, my goal coming in was 3.9 on ours, or at least the CPI, August to August CPI that we were working towards, about 4%. But a lot of it hinges on what we do with that. My question over because the motion that was just read out regarding the asset management plan is different from what I thought we were discussing. So that's where I stand. I'd like to continue to work on the levy a little bit, and that's where I stand. I'd like to see 3.9 on ours. So thanks.
Well, and there's still opportunity. There are a few items we can tweak, but I'm comfortable with the proposed budget at the 2.11 blended rate. As Councillor Spoulos so eloquently put, we made decisions earlier on that we're kind of tied to them. That's the staffing. We all understand that the bylaw and all those other issues need to be addressed. The blended rate of 2.11, ours up being 4.27 on our portion of the taxes equates to $54 or something, Ms. Hassan. It's something relatively affordable to the constituents, and we're providing all these additional services. We're still showing our commitment to the gravel roads, even though the other funding could still say you're showing your commitment. This just ingrains it a little more in the process and ensures funding throughout. So also our member municipalities across the county, we're not out of line. Most of them have passed very similar budgets. And I feel that we're being quite responsible. So I don't, so the motion is that there'd be here, either Ms. Hoyt Fox or Ms. Hassan, can you just remind council the motion, and I'm going to go around the vote.
So is this the motion related to the gravel roads discretionary reserve?
Correct, and it's
Yes.
a transition from asset management plan contribution to the
Okay.
gravel roads reserve.
We have Councillor Sapoulis moving and Councillor Goyda seconding, and it's that council reallocate $50,000 of tax levy from the asset management discretionary reserve to the gravel roads improvement discretionary reserve from 2022 to 2032.
Thank you. So my last comment is there's probably some wiggle room in that contribution to the asset management plan, and there's one study that we're still on the books for a tax levy. We may be able to find some savings there or defer some of that funding to the following fiscal year to maybe get down to that 3.19 that Councillor Balmer was hoping to get to. So, all right, call the vote. Councillor Goyda.
In favor.
Okay, Councillor Spillis,
In favor.
Councillor Bailey,
In favor.
and Councillor Balmer.
Okay, so thank you. Now that this motion is back on and I get a chance to ask a question on the wording of it, just if I could confirm from staff, what we're actually talking about here is just changing where the money is already, the 150,000 of levy is already going to the asset management plan. So we're not changing the money going to the asset management plan. We're just changing where it goes in the asset management plan. Is that correct?
Yep.
Sorry, Councillor Bulmer, it's just changing the contribution that was going to the asset management discretionary reserve and reallocating it to the gravel roads improvement discretionary reserve. But you're correct that gravel roads are incorporated in the asset management plan.
So this is really no change. We've spent all this time talking about something that's, we're not changing the amount of money that's going towards the management of an asset.
Yes, because gravel roads are an asset.
Exactly. So, and it's still, there's no effect on the levy at all here. Then it's just 150,000 from the levy is still going towards a reserve to manage an asset.
Sorry, Mr. Councillor Bulmer.
100,000.
50,000. Yeah.
50,000.
Yes.
So
and-
Matthew, hold on, I'll interject because he started out with the wrong number. You said 150,000, which you were confusing with the gravel roads contribution.
No.
It's 100,000 that's being contributed to the asset management plan, and you're
Right.
right, it's just being moved to a different section of the asset management plan, which is still looking after an asset in the plan. There's no impact on the levy. It just won't reduce the levy either. So there's literally no impact. It just changes where it's on paper.
Yeah.
It's carried
So-
anyways, Councillor Balmer. I'm giving you some rope here, but it's carried already by the vote, so.
Well, no, understood. I just want to make sure that if I understand it. So since it has no impact and it's essentially, it's still 100,000 of levy going into the maintenance of management of an asset. It's no
Correct.
change there.
A point of
Then-
clarification, Mr. Mayor, the motion was $50,000.
You know, he's messing up some numbers. The total amount being placed into the asset management plan was rounded up to above last year was $100,000.
Understood.
And 50,000 of that is now being asked to be put on paper,
Understood.
and so you're right, there's no change in levy. It's just,
Yep.
it's both going to assets within the township. One's gravel roads, one's for a specific asset, the other's for the general pot assets.
Same. It's an asset, part of the asset management plan. In favor then.
Yes, okay, perfect, thank you. Next. Four-way, this is the one I was just talking about, 401 and Highway 6 project review hotspots. Here's something that it's important, but maybe there's an opportunity to reduce this $10,000 or $15,000 so that we carry some of the costs in 22 and some of the costs in 23. I don't know if any member of council has a little more understanding of this, that they can express their, if there is an opportunity to reduce this to help the tax rate. Let me just go around or just interject, please, if you have any suggestions on this one.
Okay, I do. I asked for the money to be included in the hotspots, the review of the the design. Normally, during the design process, the consultants for the MTO are going to come forward and say, this is our plans, what do you think, type of thing. And the intent was to give staff some funds so they can hire consultants to look at anything that's suspicious or requires second review. Now, the $25,000 was put forward by staff. The amount, I don't know if it's a right number. If the design strictly for next year is the mid-block interchange, and perhaps 25,000 is a little bit too rich. If it's also, if the intent for the MTO is to continue with the design of the other elements of the Morrison bypass, and I think some heavy design review next year, i.e. 2022, then 25,000 is not too rich. So I guess my question if staff is, do you know the schedule for the MTO that would warrant the $25,000 at this time?
At this point, the only information that they're giving us is pertaining to the mid-block, and there hasn't been anything really further committed to the design stage of the Morrison bypass. So I'm not sure there's a whole lot that we would be needing input on in terms of design consultants for the mid-block. They've offered to work with us on the design concerns that we had outlined to this point. So perhaps this would be an opportunity to maybe just postpone that 25,000 to maybe next year.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, so in that vein, I'm going to suggest that we reduce this by 20,000, leave 5,000 in the kitty for any extraordinary items that it comes up that I'm mindful of a couple of things. First of all, the noise associated with a couple of residents on the west side of Hammond. And I don't know if that's going to be an ongoing concern or not, but I really want to make sure those residents are protected. So that's one concern I'm aware of. I'm not sure how bad it is on the other side of the Hammond. So my motion is that we reduce the 407 Highway 6 project review hotspots from $25,000 to $5,000.
Can I get a seconder for that, please?
I will.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Goyda. Councillor Goyda.
Thank you. I appreciate your take on that, Councillor Sapoulas. That helps me greatly. I would definitely be in favor of that if you know, I'm definitely in favor of that, and that also addresses my concern of the overall tax levy because it'll bring it down pretty much the exact amount I was hoping to. So that works out well, and I would be in favor of that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Spoulos.
I said my piece. I made a motion. I'm good.
Okay, Councillor Bailey.
Yep, I would support that. I like leaving a little bit in there, so I'm comfortable with that amount.
Okay. Councillor Bulmer.
Good idea.
Excellent. All right. All in favor, Councillor Goyda.
In favor.
Councillor Spoulos.
In favor.
Councillor Bailey.
In favor.
Councillor Bulmer.
In favor.
Excellent. We have the County of Wellington Study on Additional Employment Lands. That's a grant program.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, if I could just interject, I believe I missed the seconder for that motion.
Councillor Goyda.
Perfect, thank you.
And
Right.
sorry, Mr. Mayor, just so I can make sure that the budget model is appropriately updated. What I heard is that the 401 and Highway 6 project review of hotspots, that we incorporate 5,000 levy funding in 2022 and 20,000 levy funding in 2023. Is that correct?
That works.
Okay.
I believe so. That's correct. Or at least be considered in 2023. So the County of Wellington one, I went over it pretty quick, but that's going to apply for a grant. The COLA's done. Equipment operator position, that's done. This one here, parks and facility advertising, can that be funded out of the Parks and Rec Reserve? Is that appropriate use of that money or no, Ms. Stan?
That's an operating item, and so it's recommended that it be funded from the operating tax levy because it'll be a recurring item.
Oh, right. Okay, any comments from council on that one? No. Right. Staff include the proposed level of service policy for public works, no budget impact. 48,230 remain in the operating budget associated with the Cambridge Fire contract. Just interject again if you have any comments. The COLA thing is done. I appreciate the support of the top aggregate producing municipalities, 5,000. I'll speak more to that during the council reports. Council approved the 2022 one-time base budget increase. All right, that was general surplus. Key levy impact. Okay, approves the permanent base budget increase amounting to Microsoft Office. I don't believe anybody wants to change any of that stuff. Insurance renewal, that was disappointing. Ms. Hassan, can I give some advice that you probably don't need? I think we're going to need to budget for more than a 10% increase next year after seeing this one. So that's unfortunate, but in lieu of revenues. Any concerns on that one? The legal contingency discretionary reserve. Any concerns? No. All right. So do you want me to give you some time to update these numbers, or how do we want to go about it, Ms. Hassan?
So I have updated them as
Okay.
we discussed. So just based on council's direction in our meeting today, the township tax rate increase for the median typical single family home is sitting at 3.83%, and the blended is sitting at 2.03%.
So, okay, discussion, Councillor Goyda.
Oh, I'm good.
Okay, Councillor Spoulos.
I'm good as well.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I heard you. Yep.
Okay.
Councillor Bailey.
No, that sounds good to me. Thank you.
Councillor Wilmer.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, we have a resolution to be read, please.
Yes, so we've read most of them as we've gone here. So the one remaining is that report FIN 2022-002 regarding the 2022 capital and operating budget update be received, and the council approved the 4% COLA effective January 1st, 2022.
All right, can we move for that, please? I can't see the girls, so Councillor Bailey, you want to second that?
Yep.
Thanks. All in favor? Councillor Goyda,
In favor.
Councillor Spoulos,
In favor.
Councillor Bulmer.
In favor.
Whoa, I skipped.
I'm in favor.
Sorry, I was working from right to left, Councillor Bailey. You know your video on, sorry. Councillor Bailey's in favor too. Appreciate that. All right, our amendment to the site alteration bylaw. I believe that's Ivan's report. Is he here?
We're just working to get him logged in and moved over. Just a couple moments, Mr. Chair, if we can.
Sure. I'm going to say 5-minute quick dewatering break while we move Mr. Levinsky over. All right, welcome back. I'll do a quick roll call. Councillor Goyda,
Present.
Councillor Spoulos,
Present.
Councillor Bailey,
Here.
and Councillor Bulmer.
I'm here.
I believe this next report is 9.3.1 on the agenda package, site alteration bylaw amendment, and is from Mr. Levinsky.
Thank you, Mayor Sealy. Can everybody hear me okay?
That's right. Are we going to hear about Iron Man today or no?
Iron Man.
I heard your child last time playing with Iron Man in the background. That was great.
Well, they're doing some online learning, so you might hear some commotion in the background. So my apologies in advance.
No need to apologize. You're not in any different boat than the young members of this council.
Thank you. Mayor Sealy, Council, presenting report number ADM dash 2022-001 for the site alteration bylaw amendment. So just a brief overview of basically what we're trying to achieve here. This is just some legislative overhaul of the bylaw to permit us to essentially issue penalties through Part 1 of the Provincial Offences Act, and as well as just tightening up some of the provincial guidelines when it comes to penalties. So I know that there was some questions from council, and I would like to use this opportunity to go over the procedure as to how fines are issued and what these sections mean. So for a municipality to enact short form wording and set fines, they need to have a specific section inserted into the bylaw. In this case, section 33 allows us to set fines and to at least apply for set fines, which are then granted by the Ministry of the Attorney General's office. So by allowing us to get a set fine schedule implemented, we have an opportunity, when approved, to issue tickets under the Part 1 of the Provincial Offences Act. And what that means, any person which is found guilty, any person which is observed violating the bylaw or an order of the bylaw could be essentially charged. And just giving an example, if there's multiple parties involved in a site alteration occurrence, such as the property owner permitting the offense to occur, truck drivers coming in, bringing in fill and dumping it on the property, as well as the contractor who's organizing the event, could be separately charged with an offense. And what this allows us to do is once a ticket is issued, the fine is set. Some of these tickets may be paid by the party, or they could be disputed. And this is just the due process that any kind of fine in our country has, because any fine can be disputed as well as the evidence. What's different than a proceeding that goes under Part 3 of the Provincial Offences Act, and I'm gonna just choose section 34 for this specific offense, allows the municipality to then lay what we call an information under Part 3 of the Provincial Offences Act and seek for a higher fine than what we have demonstrated in the set fine. So this is where it gets a little bit more complicated, because it involves a lot more staff time, as well as lawyers, prosecutors, and this is where the defendant has no other choice but to appear in court. And this is what essentially might incur some extra expenses on behalf of the municipality. And this is what we're trying to avoid when there is an offense. If we have an opportunity to prosecute that offense just through laying a simple Part 1 charge, such as a ticket, and give an opportunity for somebody to not even dispute that ticket, to just pay that ticket, that would alleviate some of the responsibility versus laying several information, for example, for every truck driver or every corporate entity that's involved, including the property owner, will take quite a bit of more time. So by approving the bylaw amendment as it is today, it's going to expedite the whole process and give the municipality some alternative way of dealing with the issues pertaining to site alteration. And if council has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them and clarify any kind of questions that you have.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ivan. Councillor Goyda.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Ivan, for your clarification. I have to admit that I was not understanding how the fines that were showing in section 34 of the 500 and not more than 50,000 correlated to the ticket fees in the schedule. But I think if I'm understanding correctly, and if you can just clarify that by issuing a ticket with the fine set out in the schedule, that provides an opportunity to pay the penalty and end the process. However, if there's an appeal, that's when the section 34 would apply. Am I understanding that correctly?
To a portion, yes, you understand that there's definitely any ticket could be challenged in court, whether it's by requesting a meeting with the prosecutor to ask for a reduced sentence or for a trial. But the portion that I discussed in section 34, that's a separate process for a proceeding under part 3 of the Provincial Offences Act. So it doesn't correlate to the section 33 and the set fine schedule. So if somebody disputes one of those, it just goes through the process through the courts. It doesn't have anything to do with section 34, which allows us to essentially lay an additional charge, which summons them to court no matter what. They have to appear in court. And this is where we have no other choice but to prosecute the case from start to finish.
Okay. And then one other question that I have, in section 36, it talks about a person who contravenes the bylaw could be required to rehabilitating the land and removing the fill, etc. So my question is, if a truck driver is ticketed for any of the items in Schedule F, does that mean that that truck driver may also be required to the other provisions that are mentioned here in section 36?
No. So I can, that's a clear no to that question, just because the section 36 talks about an order being issued. So typically we wouldn't issue a truck driver an order. It would go against the contractor, the corporate entity, and it would go against the property owner. So, and most likely, more often than not, we would go against the property owner to require him to rehabilitate or clean up the property.
Okay, thank you. That answers my questions. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Ivan, I love the fact that you have a young family like myself, but I would request that you mute your mic, yes, when you're not addressing council. Thank you. Councillor Spoulos.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Bailey.
Goodness. There we go. Thank you, Ivan. I just have one question. It's more in regards to making sure the wording's clear, and specifically section 33. It just, the words "and upon conviction." So I'm just wondering, is there any need to add a definition about who's doing the conviction, or how a conviction comes about, or is the reference there sufficient?
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. So just to reference, section 33 is something that's standard found in the Provincial Offences Act. And this is inserted in all bylaws that do have set fine penalty. So there's no definitions that are required. This is standard and it's found within the Provincial Offences Act.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it. Perfect. Okay, Councillor Balmer.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to have some clarification here because I'm struggling with many of these same things. I'm trying to get my head around the connection between the wording of the bylaw and the application of the set fines. And the same thing about this upon conviction. So you're suggesting that we don't need to have that conviction for prior to one of the set fines being applied?
That's correct. So I think this is standard wording that's found in the Provincial Offences Act, and the reason why it says upon conviction is because a set fine is not deemed final until a person is convicted. They either plead guilty or they're found guilty through a trial, and a set fine is also subject to a possible mediation between the prosecutor and could be reduced at the discretion of the prosecutor. And this is why they insert that kind of wording. So conviction is a key word that if if a person pleads guilty and just pays the fine, then the set fine is imposed. If they decide to have an early resolution and try to plead guilty to a lesser fine, then that's also another option. And then the third option is to go through a trial.
Because I'm just trying to find the connection between the bylaw, the text of the, these clauses, and the set fines, which show up in the schedule, which are indicated to be not part of the bylaw. So I would have expected in that clause, it would have said something along the lines of anybody who's committed one of these offenses is be subject to a set fine, and upon conviction, these other things would come into play. So I trust that I guess because I can't find it doesn't mean it's not workable. It just doesn't, I don't see a connection between any of these clauses and applying the set fines that are in that schedule. Because there's nothing in here that says that a set fine will be assessed in any of these situations. It always seems to come post conviction, which means that you can hand out as many tickets. To me, it reads like I could hand somebody a ticket and they say, thank you. And they're not, it doesn't apply until they're convicted by a court.
Thank you, Councilor Wilmer. So just to mention here, I've worked with the Ministry of the Attorney General's office. So there's a colleague that I have there that we work through many bylaws, and typically this specific clause does not have any correlation with the rest of the bylaw. It's just a requirement for us to have. It's for us to impose a set fine penalty, and it's more of a it's a clause. How do I put this properly? So it's a conviction statement. So if
Understood,
somebody's found guilty, they're of an offense, they're bound to subject to a fine as provided in the Provincial Offences Act, and that's something that we do apply for. And this is not something that's really negotiable in any way, because this is what the Ministry of Attorney General's office requires us to put in all bylaws that have set fine penalties. And if this clause is amended, they would essentially reject our application and ask us to amend the bylaw to include this clause as written.
Well, I guess that's I'm not an expert, so I trust that what you've done will have the results that you're looking for. and I will see the proof of that will be as it shows up on the revenue side of the budget, I guess.
Thank you, Councilor Bowman.
Thank you so much, Ivan. Appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. So do we have a resolution, Ms. White Fox?
Yes, that report ADM 2022-001 regarding amendments to the site alteration bylaw 31-2012 as amended be received, and that council gives 3 readings to bylaw 2022-01 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2012-31 as amended.
Thank you. Can I get a mover for that, please? Councillor Spillis, second. Councillor Bailey. All in favor. Councillor Goida.
In favor.
Councillor Spillis. I saw you say it, I didn't hear it. Councillor Spillis. You're still muted. It's okay, I can see you. There we go. Councillor Bailey.
In favor.
Councillor Balmer.
In favor.
That's carried. Thank you, Ivan. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
All right, so we have correspondence none. Council reports. The County Roads Committee, we dealt with the final report for their Road Master Action Plan, which was endorsed by the committee. We'll go to council. I'm talking county council at the end of the month. I believe we will see it as a council on the 19th. So I look forward to those discussions. There's lots in there pertaining to Whistler. So the county base budget, or the county proposed budget, is 2%, as I mentioned a little bit earlier in the report. And it did make it through solid waste and roads, which even in our situation is the driving factor around budgets. So in the past, solid waste has been putting a lot of pressure on the budget. This year, we're doing well. Will say there was some discussion around the garbage bags, and county staff's going to look into the possibility of transitioning to a paper garbage bag, since the all our organics are hopefully making their way into the green bins or into your home composters if you have larger properties. So I'm looking forward to that report back from the county. I think if I was given the option, whether plastic or paper bag, I might offer a paper bag. We're pretty diligent here. We don't put a lot of wet garbage per se into the bypass, as we would call it in the municipality to the north. Roma is coming up at the end of the month. We've moved the date, or not the date, the time of the TAPMO meeting from 1 p.m. You may or may not have seen that in an email. It's now 10 a.m. on Sunday. Doing the rounds, calling mayors, trying to secure the new TAPMO fee structure. And I was speaking with a prominent mayor, Alan Thompson, and he had, I believe, a delegation confirmation with Mr. Clark, and I really wanted him at the meeting along with some others, so we moved it to 10, which I think would work better for everyone. So that's kind of the priority right now, is calling top 10 producers of TAPMO and giving them the pitch as to why we need this increased fee. This council is pretty much aware, but we want TAPMO to be proactive versus reactive. And some of the items we've addressed at TAPMO is that TAPMO is supposed to represent, a majority of producers in the province, yet they don't have their own web hosting, they don't have their own domain name, and typically the chairs, municipal staff look after all of those things, and so it might be tapmo@puslinch.ca, and we really want to get it on its own, so that when there's a transition from chair to chair, it's just a matter of passing on the information, passwords, those kinds of things, so that it is a standalone entity. It's a little bit of third-party arm's length. That's all good news. I have a meeting booked with the mayor and CAO of Kawartha Lakes. They are the single most largest producer of aggregate in Ontario currently, and they had some questions around the new fee schedule. So with January being budget time, it's difficult to get it in, but we've gone back and forth. I think that's scheduled for, I got too many meetings, I think the 21st of January or something like that. So I look forward to discussing with them. And I believe that's all I have, but looking forward to Roma. I think we have one delegation, Mr. Schwendinger. We got to approve for our MTO delegation. That's correct, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Ms. White Fox, I don't believe council has seen it, but between her and Glenn and the staff, they put together a nice little presentation. I'll remind council that request was around the EDR, going through Aberfoyle and trying to get it to go down an alternate route. And Ms. White Fox put together a nice map and a little presentation that we can submit, and that's on the Monday, I believe. And yeah, I think other than that, I don't have anything further. So I could take a few questions if you want about that, but and then I'll open up to council for their updates. Anything? All right, good. All right, any updates from members of council? Council Suppose?
No.
No? Okay. All right, Ms. White Fox, you have a resolution for that?
I might have one little thing, just
Sure.
if I could ask. This is maybe less, this is a community update from Councillor Jessica. Councillor Goyda would likely be aware of this as well, but perhaps that the CAO could raise with the city of Guelph. It seems like one of the horns on one of their trains is broken, and it sounds more like a boat. I feel like I'm living next to a harbor now, and I'm not sure if that's a safety issue, and just maybe they can, the Guelph Junction Railway can confirm that they'll get that that fixed so that the train has the proper train whistle again when he's next discussing this issue with the city?
Mr. Schwendinger, do you need a resolution of council for that?
No, I don't need a resolution. That's fine. I'll bring that up in the discussions with them. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Councilor Gordy, do you want to discuss your experience with the tugboat horn?
I mean, Councillor Balmer has described it quite well. I really don't know. It's just happened over the last maybe 3 weeks. It is a dramatic change in the sound of the whistle. So I don't know if it's more obtrusive or less obtrusive. It's just different. So I don't know.
I've received some emails and there's some other concerned residents, so it'd be nice for the CAO to be able to look into that and.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything further from council? No? All right, Ms. White, get that resolution.
The council received the mayor's and council member updates for information.
And mover for that, please. I'm gonna use the girls. Councilor Bailey, Councilor Gordy. Councilor Gordy, you second that?
Yes,
All in favor? Councilor Gordy?
in favor.
Councilor Spools?
In favor.
Councilor Bailey?
In favor.
Councilor Palmer?
In favor.
All right, next is bylaws. Ms. White Fox.
The following bylaw be taken as read 3 times and finally passed in open council. Bylaw 2022-001 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 31-2012 as amended, being a bylaw for prohibiting and regulating the alteration of property within the township of Puslinch.
Mover for that, Councilor Bailey?
I'll second it.
No, I'm using the girls. I'm using the girls.
Oh,
Councilor Bailey, move, seconded. Councilor Goyda?
Yes,
All right, all in favor, Councilor Goyda?
in favor.
Councilor Spools?
In favor.
Councilor Bailey?
In favor.
Councilor Palmer?
in favor.
All right, the closed session, which is none. Any business arising from the closed session we didn't have? No. Motion? No. New business? No. Announcements? Anything? Announcements. Glenn, Family Day weekend. I know it's up in the air, but maybe you could just talk about that for the community a little bit, please. Putting you on the spot. We didn't discuss this in advance, but we really don't know, right?
Well, I'll tell you what we do know. The current legislation is saying that maximum gathering outdoors is 25. We have not heard yet what changes would be and when they would be. It's going to be contingent on numbers admitted to hospital and ICU capacity, and that hasn't been moving in the right direction. So I wouldn't anticipate that anytime soon, but that's a provincial decision. With regards to the facility itself, as you know, there's some renovation work underway. We are having some supply chain challenges with some of the key components. They aren't able to arrive at the time frame that we've anticipated, that we've been hoping for, and the contractors also had some isolation challenges of some of their staff being exposed to. So bottom line is the facility is not going to be available for the Family Day weekend.
Okay, well, and I guess our best hope is that the outdoor capacities may be removed or allowed to increase, and the community can come together and put something together kind of ad hoc quickly for Family Day. Looks like that might be our best option, but like everything else, we'll just play it by ear while we hear more from the province and the outlook at COVID. Any comments on that, council, before I go to confirmatory bylaw? No? Okay, confirmatory bylaw, Ms. White Fox.
That the following bylaw be taken as read 3 times and finally passed in open council. Bylaw 2022-002 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council for the corporation of the township of Puslinch at its meeting held on the 13th day of January 2022.
I'm going to move her for that. Councilor Spoulos, seconded by Councilor Goyda. All in favor, Councilor Goyda,
In favor.
Councilor Spoulos,
In favor.
Councilor Bailey,
Favor.
Councilor Balmer,
In favor.
and adjournment.
The council hereby adjourns at 12:31 p.m.
Can you move her, please? Counselor Ballmer,
Yes.
second by Counselor Goida.
Yep,
All in favor, Counselor Goida,
in favor.
Counselor Sapoulos,
In favor.
Counselor Bailey,
In favor.
and Counselor Ballmer.
In favor.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. It was a good meeting. Very well.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Take care.